Some memories never fully leave. No matter how much time passes or how far you try to run, certain painful moments stay deeply embedded in your mind. Even after years, you can try to scrub away the difficult words or pretend they never happened, but the faint outline of that old hurt always seems to linger. Your mind keeps returning there, like a heavy, tangled thread pulling you backward. Your thoughts effortlessly spiral down the exact same anxious, exhausting pathways. The same regret. You find yourself standing completely alone in a heavy fog of what-ifs, replaying every single mistake and desperately wishing you had chosen differently. The same pain. Every time you look back, the water is disturbed all over again, sending fresh, overwhelming ripples of sorrow straight through your fragile chest. The same questions. You are entirely exhausted by the dizzying, endless loop of wondering exactly why it happened and if you could have somehow prevented it. You replay everything repeatedly. You painfully analyze every single detail, tearing the memory apart piece by piece, desperately searching for a moment where you could have fixed it, trying to understand what went wrong. You stare endlessly into the fractured pieces of the past, hoping that just one more agonizing look will finally bring you closure. Scene 9. Trying to somehow change the past. But no amount of painful overthinking or intense mental replay can rewrite a heavy story that has already been completely finished. But the memories stay heavy. They drift down and quietly pile up around you, weighing heavily on your tired soul and making it completely impossible to just let go. And your heart grows tired. The constant burning anxiety of holding on to old pain slowly melts away all of your daily emotional strength until there is nothing left. Because regret traps the mind, it completely distorts how you view yourself, convincing you that your entire identity is permanently defined by your absolute worst moments, and keeps the soul stuck. Endlessly looking backward at the fading path ensures you remain frozen in place, entirely terrified to take a single vulnerable step forward. You wonder if you ruined everything. The overwhelming guilt slowly dissolves your confidence, leaving you completely paralyzed by the incredibly heavy fear that you are a failure. If you failed someone, you quietly examine the shattered pieces of past relationships, heavily carrying the agonizing burden of believing it was all entirely your fault. If you should have done more, you stare directly into the blinding fog of missed opportunities, deeply burdened by the completely impossible standard of perfect hindsight. So your exhausted thoughts keep returning backward. The overwhelming knots of anxiety pull incredibly tight in your chest, chaining you permanently to a history you cannot change. Even when your soul wants peace, some memories stay because your heart never healed from them. Regret keeps pulling your mind backward, even when your weary soul desperately wants rest. Some pain never fully leaves. Even when you try your hardest to move on, the sharp edges of past mistakes still rest quietly in the background of your mind. So your thoughts inevitably return there. Your mind quietly retraces those fading footprints, wondering if taking a different path would have somehow spared you this heartache. Back to old memories. The moments you wish you could rewrite drift through the silence like torn paper, completely out of your control but entirely impossible to ignore. Old mistakes. You stare down the empty, foggy paths of your history, carrying the incredibly heavy burden of choices you can never go back and undo. Old words, harsh things said in anger, or sincere apologies you never got the chance to make continue to flicker in your mind like a dim light refusing to burn out. Things you desperately wish were different. You watch your own confidence slowly shrink away, completely overshadowed by the intense guilt of how a particular chapter ended. You replay conversations repeatedly, frantically trying to mentally edit the words that were spoken. You rub at the memory until the page is entirely worn through and erased. Searching for answers, you look deeply into the fractured pieces of your past, hoping to finally find some logical reason that explains exactly why it had to hurt so much. Searching for peace, you lower your head in pure emotional exhaustion, deeply longing for just a single moment of quiet rest away from the relentless demands of your own memory. But regret keeps speaking, even when you deliberately isolate yourself in a vast, quiet space to escape the noise. That familiar voice of guilt still manages to find you. Quietly. It doesn't always shout. Instead, it slowly tightens like a heavy, tangled thread around your heart, making it incredibly difficult to simply breathe without aching. Constantly. Just as you finally think you have moved forward, another heavy memory falls silently into your day, pulling your focus straight back down into the past. Until your heart feels completely trapped, the dense fog of what-ifs surrounds you entirely, blinding you to the present moment and stealing all of your forward momentum. Because unresolved pain stays incredibly heavy, you try to piece the broken pottery back together, but the deep fractures continue to leak the exhausting truth of your sorrow. Even in absolute silence, you do not need to be talking about it for the pain to disrupt your peace. The internal chaos constantly distorts exactly how you view yourself. Part of you desperately wants healing. You look out toward the distant light, genuinely wanting to drop this massive burden and step into a brand new beginning. But another part fiercely holds on. When the anxious ripples finally start to calm, a strange fear sets in, making you wonder who you actually are without this familiar ache. Still attached to the past, letting go completely feels almost like a betrayal, so you continue to fiercely guard the fading footprints of the people and moments that walked away. Still hoping for peace, deep down, despite the exhausting cycle, you pray that the blinding fog of your regret will eventually clear, allowing your tired mind to finally rest. Still hoping healing exists. Regret keeps your heart trapped in old memories because part of you still hopes the past could feel different. But that warm light proves a restored heart is truly possible. Your heart fears moving forward. Stepping into the unknown feels entirely paralyzing when your spirit is still so heavily anchored to the familiar pain of yesterday. Because the past still hurts, the sharp edges of those old wounds have not dulled, making every brave attempt to heal feel incredibly fragile and exposed. Old pain keeps holding on, like thick, heavy roots buried deep beneath the surface. Your history tightly wraps around you, making it impossible to step away. Even when life keeps moving, the world continues spinning forward at a relentless pace, but you feel completely left behind on a trail that is slowly vanishing. Part of you still lives there. Your exhausted mind constantly wanders right back to the scene of the heartbreak, keeping your true identity tied to that difficult chapter. Inside unfinished memories, the entirely unresolved conversations and sudden endings float through your mind like the scattered, torn pages of a book left completely unread. Inside old regret, you stare blindly down the dark, misty avenues of your history, overwhelmed by the crushing weight of everything you wish you had done differently. Inside, things left unresolved. You obsessively trace over the faded outlines of what happened, desperately hoping to finally find an answer to questions that were never answered. Your soul feels emotionally stuck. The vibrant, hopeful version of yourself has slowly faded entirely into the background, completely overshadowed by the massive weight of your guilt. Afraid to fully let go, you stand completely frozen at the edge of tomorrow, terrified that successfully releasing your grip on the past means losing yourself entirely. Because pain became familiar, the intense, tangled knot in your chest is constantly agonizing, but it is a familiar feeling you have learned exactly how to survive. And familiarity feels safe. Even though these fading memories are incredibly hurtful, they are entirely predictable, providing a strange comfort against the completely terrifying unknown future. Even when it hurts, you willingly wrap the cold, isolating mist around yourself like a protective blanket, deliberately choosing the ache of yesterday over the risk of tomorrow. But your heart is tired. The immense daily effort it takes to constantly look backward and fiercely guard all of that heavy regret is completely breaking your spirit. Tired of carrying old weight, you secretly long for the turbulent ripples of guilt to finally settle, giving your exhausted, overwhelmed mind just a single moment of genuine rest. Tired of looking backward, as a faint, hopeful glow gently pierces the darkness, you slowly realize you cannot spend the rest of your life simply mourning what has passed. And Jesus perfectly understands that struggle. He does not judge your heavy hesitation or condemn you for holding tightly to the painful memories that deeply shaped your life. He sees the wounds underneath. His gentle, patient grace reaches directly into the deepest, most fractured places of your heart without demanding instant perfection or immediate surrender. The pain you still carry, standing patiently in the mist, his comforting presence gracefully acknowledges exactly how much strength it takes just to survive the burden of your memories and the healing your soul needs. Embraced by his unconditional love, the terrifyingly heavy grip of the past finally begins to loosen, opening a beautiful path to true peace. Jesus sees every single hidden regret. He looks past the brave face you show the world and sees the silent, heavy burdens of the past you carry alone in the dark. Even the ones you never speak about. He knows the secret mistakes and painful choices that you have buried deep down, terrified of what others might think if they knew. He perfectly understands your profound sorrow. He does not judge your inability to move on, but completely sympathizes with the overwhelming ache that keeps you looking backward. Your guilt, as his gentle presence draws near, the suffocating heavy fog of self-blame that surrounds your heart begins to completely lose its terrifying power. Your deep emotional exhaustion. He knows exactly how incredibly draining it is to constantly fight a quiet, invisible battle inside your own mind, day after agonizing day. And he stays near gently. Unlike the people who walked away when things got complicated, his unwavering, comforting presence remains steadfastly by your side. Not with shame, his love beautifully fills the cold, empty spaces of your regret without demanding that you instantly fix yourself or suddenly pretend to feel better. But with pure, unending compassion, he invites you to unclench your tight, anxious fists and simply rest your weary hands entirely in his completely unconditional grace. Because true healing begins with absolute safety. The thick, anxious roots tying you to the pain of the past finally start to let go when you realize you are secure. Not through heavy pressure. The beautiful, hopeful path ahead gently illuminates itself, allowing you to walk forward exactly at your own delicate, healing pace. Jesus does not magically erase your past. Instead of pretending the hurt never happened, his radiant light tenderly fills the deep fractures your heartbreak left behind. He restores what pain severely damaged. The blurry, distant version of yourself washes away entirely, bringing your true, confident identity completely back into focus. Little by little, the terrifying world you hid from transforms. The blinding mist completely clears, revealing a calm, expansive horizon where you are finally free. Your wounded heart finally breathes again. The tight, agonizing knot of anxiety unravels completely, replaced by a steady, comforting glow that promises you are held safe. And the heavy grip of regret slowly loosens. Sitting quietly alongside his perfect grace, the obsessive need to constantly replay your old mistakes effortlessly melts away. Because divine grace entirely changes the human heart. It takes the turbulent, anxious waters of your mind and beautifully turns them into a calm, perfectly still reflection. Even the oldest, deepest wounds can completely heal. The painful footprints of the past lose their sting when they are bathed entirely in his restoring, unconditional love. Even your most painful, difficult memories can be redeemed. Walking slowly forward with his steady presence, the terrifying shadows of your history completely lose their overwhelming power. Because Jesus brings profound peace to the past, he reaches directly into your darkest yesterdays to completely transform your heavy regret into a testimony of miraculous survival. Not by force or demanding immediate perfection, he gently stands with you in the quiet, perfectly honoring your delicate timeline as you both face the brand new dawn. But through a perfect love that permanently stays, you are finally allowed to feel as wonderfully light and completely unburdened as a delicate feather resting on the breeze. And absolutely never leaves your side. You no longer have to frantically protect yourself because you are firmly anchored in a majestic love that will endure forever. Your unique, complex story is not beyond true healing. No matter how many pages were stained by sorrow, the chapters ahead are filled with breathtaking, beautiful redemption. Because his endless grace is infinitely stronger than your deepest regret. Surrounded entirely by his magnificent, restorative light, your soul finally knows it is completely safe. Healing begins quietly. It doesn't arrive like a sudden lightning strike, but rather like a very gentle, warm light slowly spreading through the thick fog of your lingering regrets. Inside hidden wounds, deep down where nobody else can see the fractures, a beautiful golden grace starts to pour into the broken places you thought would ache forever. Your mind slowly softens. The intense, turbulent waves of overthinking and anxious replay gradually settle, allowing your thoughts to find a profoundly relieving, perfectly still calmness. And your heart breathes again. As the suffocating weight of the past completely clears away, your chest finally expands without the immediate, terrifying anticipation of sudden pain. Because peace slowly returns, the blurry, distorted version of yourself you believed in for so long washes away entirely, revealing your true, untarnished worth standing beautifully in the light. Old pain loses its control. The heavy, anxious roots that kept you fiercely tied to your painful history finally begin to release their incredibly tight, exhausting grip. Not instantly. Releasing years of tightly held hurt is an incredibly delicate process, completely supported by his steady, unwavering presence standing right beside you in the mist. But slowly, little by little, the cold emptiness inside your chest is completely replaced by a remarkably warm, steady glow that absolutely refuses to be extinguished again. Your soul begins safely releasing regret. The massive defensive walls you built to guard your vulnerability are gently dissolving, allowing genuine hope to finally flow back in. And the past feels wonderfully lighter. The incredibly heavy shadow of your old mistakes is beautifully washed away by the brilliant, accepting light of a brand new dawn. Less painful. Looking back at what happened no longer sends a massive, chaotic wave of anxiety through your body. It simply creates a calm, understood ripple. Less heavy, you are finally able to stand completely upright in the light, realizing that you do not have to carry the burden of yesterday into tomorrow. Because true healing profoundly changes the human heart, it takes a barren, exhausted emotional landscape and slowly fills it completely with vibrant, living, and breathtaking new colors. Even your most broken memories, the shattered moments you thought completely ruined your story, are tenderly gathered, healed, and beautifully fused together with magnificent, unconditional grace. Can become completely peaceful again. With his gentle, restorative presence completely guiding your vision, you can finally look at the horizon without being terrified of what comes next. You slowly stop living backward. The paralyzing fog lifts entirely off the path, giving you the absolute freedom to finally turn around and embrace the journey ahead. And start confidently moving forward. Opening your hands to the sunlight means you have successfully stopped clinging to the pain that was entirely holding your spirit hostage. Without carrying everything entirely alone, every single step forward feels wonderfully light because his divine strength is perfectly sustaining your weary soul along the way. Little by little, the incredibly vast, beautiful expanse of your future opens up, replacing the cramped, fearful prison of regret with endless, breathtaking possibility. Your soul beautifully learns freedom again. Healing begins when your heart stops living inside old pain and slowly learns peace entirely beyond the boundaries of the past. Peace feels deeply unfamiliar at first. When your mind is completely used to constant storms, standing by a perfectly still lake can initially feel strange and disorienting. Because your heart carried heavy pain way too long, you lived in survival mode for so many years that floating effortlessly like a feather feels almost impossible to trust. But slowly your soul genuinely rests. The suffocating tension inside your body completely dissipates, carried away by a soft, restorative wind, moving gently across the open field. Your exhausted thoughts become incredibly quieter. The relentless, noisy loop of anxious replay fades away entirely into the vast, beautifully calm expanse of a glowing sky. And your heart finally feels lighter. The frantic urge to always fly away from your feelings is replaced by a profound, secure ability to just sit perfectly still. Not perfect. You may still have days where a shadow of the past tries to return, but you now have the absolute strength to breathe calmly right through it. But beautifully peaceful. Looking at your completely restored reflection, you finally see a mind that is clear, a heart that is safe, and a soul that is anchored. Without constant agonizing regret. You let go of the impossible desire to control what has already happened, resting your completely open hands in the warmth of today. Because divine grace completely changes exactly how you remember. Walking closely with Him, your old wounds are no longer evidence of failure, but a profound testament to your survival. The past no longer controls everything. The massive storm clouds of guilt have beautifully drifted away, leaving a clear, expansive sky where your dreams can finally take flight. Your emotions become wonderfully steadier. You are no longer easily knocked over by a sudden memory. Instead, your foundation is perfectly solid, grounded, and entirely secure. Your soul becomes incredibly calmer. The rippling panic that used to completely blur your identity settles into a brilliant, crystal-clear understanding of exactly who you are. And true healing finally feels completely real. You look around at the vast, unburdened, open space of your life, realizing you are no longer just surviving your days. Because peace permanently stayed. The divine warmth inside your chest is not a fleeting emotion. It is an unwavering, enduring sanctuary built directly into your spirit. Even after all the intense pain, standing beside His reassuring presence, you realize the difficult journey backward was entirely necessary to reach this magnificent, hopeful dawn. Your heart finally breathes completely freely. Peace returns when regret no longer controls your heart, and your beautifully restored soul finally feels entirely safe moving forward. Your life is not trapped in the past. The heavy chapters you thought would permanently confine your story are finally giving way to a vast, beautifully unwritten tomorrow. Neither is your future. No matter how many agonizing mistakes you feel you have made, tomorrow is an entirely blank page waiting for His perfect grace to rewrite the ending. Healing creates beautiful new beginnings. As you finally let go of the heavy burdens you used to carry, you naturally create space for unexpected, profound joy to firmly take root. Even after incredibly painful seasons, it does not matter how long you spent wandering blindly in the fog of regret. The clear, open path forward is always ready to welcome you back. Your heart slowly, miraculously believes again. The crushing weight of your old doubts completely melts away, replaced by a radiant, unwavering warmth that safely anchors your entire spirit. Because grace steadfastly stayed beside you. When you were entirely convinced you deserved to be abandoned, His endless, forgiving love refused to leave your side for even a single moment. Even during your deepest seasons of regret, He never scolded you for constantly looking backward, but patiently kept the light shining forward until you were finally ready to see it. Even during your moments of absolute weakness, when you felt entirely broken and distorted by guilt, He looked past the damage to the perfectly clear, beautiful reflection of who you truly are. The past absolutely no longer owns you. The incredibly heavy chains of what-ifs and old mistakes have been completely shattered, leaving you entirely unburdened and finally free to move. And guilt no longer defines your identity. You are not the sum of the moments you desperately wish you could change, but rather the beautiful, living result of unconditional forgiveness. Because true healing profoundly changes the human soul. It tenderly takes the deeply scarred, exhausted places inside you and breathes entirely new, vibrant, and restoring life into them. You finally stop living backward emotionally, safely guided by His steadfast companionship. You no longer feel the terrifying urge to constantly return to the scenes of your old pain. and you begin moving forward completely peacefully. The paralyzing fear of the unknown is beautifully washed away by the brilliant, comforting dawn of your entirely restored life. Because grace completely restores what heavy regret nearly destroyed. Walking freely in His divine light, you are a beautiful living testament that no heartbreak is ever beyond absolute healing. Maybe you were never meant to carry everything forever. The crushing weight of your past was not designed to be a permanent burden on your weary shoulders. Maybe your heart simply needed deep, compassionate healing. Instead of harsh judgment for looking backward, your spirit just desperately needed the time and safety to recover. After carrying heavy regret entirely too long, you spent so many exhausting years silently punishing yourself for things that happened in a completely different chapter of your life. Too much sorrow, the relentless, quiet ache of all those missed opportunities and fractured relationships finally became incredibly too heavy for your soul to sustain alone. Too many intensely painful memories. Your mind became completely overloaded by the constant, overwhelming flood of mental replay, desperate for just a single moment of absolute stillness. But Jesus steadfastly stayed right beside your deepest wounds. He never turned away when your pain was messy or when you could not find the strength to let go. Even when you felt completely trapped there, when you were entirely convinced that you would never escape the shadow of your past, His light kept steadily pointing forward. Even when true peace felt absolutely impossible, He gently filled your most broken, damaged places with a radiant, restoring warmth that proved profound healing was still within reach. Because genuine emotional healing always happens gently. It is a tender, deeply beautiful journey of releasing the heavy chains of yesterday, one very small link at a time. Slowly, the dark, suffocating clouds of your guilt drift beautifully away, slowly revealing a breathtaking, perfectly clear expanse of limitless grace directly above you. Patiently, He perfectly honors exactly where you are, standing completely peacefully beside you as you both bravely watch the brand new dawn unfold together, until your weary soul finally learns true freedom again. Immersed entirely in His unconditional love, you realize you are completely safe to step joyfully into the present. Your past is not your final identity. The heavy mistakes you made and the difficult seasons you barely survived do not define the radiant, beautiful person you are becoming today. Neither are your mistakes. Every misstep and every moment of profound regret is beautifully washed away, entirely replaced by an enduring, steady light that beats confidently inside your chest. Healing slowly, miraculously changes the heart. It gently takes the exhausted, heavily guarded spaces of your soul and softens them entirely until carrying the past is no longer your instinct. And His unconditional grace slowly, beautifully changes the future. Standing safely beside Him, the terrifying unknown entirely transforms into a breathtaking promise of unending love and absolute emotional freedom. Because true spiritual peace finally becomes infinitely stronger than regret. The loud, demanding voice of your history is completely silenced by the brilliant, comforting warmth of His restorative presence. And your weary soul finally, joyfully learns to move forward. You are no longer trapped looking backward, because you have completely stepped into the beautiful, endless dawn of your perfectly healed life.